at the Lake House after the show. Toby, M.I.A. So we put all these Canadian artists on a huge stage, like Budweiser Stage, for the entire city to see. And some of these organizations are actually also our sponsors in that. But yeah, so if you want to research these, look them up. They have a lot of grants going on. You can get from $10,000 to $75K. There's also a lot of grants in order for just your personal use. So for instance, you work in the music industry and you work for a nonprofit as well, and you have a lot of home stuff going on. We're in a recession, like gas is expensive. There's a lot of grants out there that will help, you know, put money in your pocket so that you're not hanging on by a string. Because again, working in the music industry and nonprofit, money's not always guaranteed. So those programs are in place to ensure the creatives in the city actually can still eat. Also, there is a program for a lot of creatives in the city that gives you subsidized rent. I think for the Artscape buildings, actually, Daniel's buildings. So a building next door actually to Artscape, they subsidize rent for creatives or anyone in any type of creative industry. Because again, when you're a creative, when you're a starving artist, it's not easy to get money, especially if you're depending on grants and donations and funding. It's not guaranteed, especially when you live in a city that's not always the most supportive when it comes to that. And that kind of leads into my point of fostering relationships. So with grants now, they're done every couple months and they open up. You have deadlines, you have to create budgets, a very long process. You can hire someone to write the grants for you, or you can learn to do it yourself. I personally think people should always learn to write them themselves. One, you save a lot of money. Two, it teaches you how to be independent in these situations, because grant writers are not always available. Also, knowing your stuff will also help you tremendously in this sector. So fostering relationships with maybe your granting officers. So getting to know them. They have a lot of workshops that they do online for a lot of nonprofit and people in music. So attending those, getting people to know your face, introducing yourself to these people, let them know what your vision is, what your mission statement is, what you have visioned for your brand. And for the most part, they're always willing to help, especially when it comes to like marginalized groups and marginalized communities. They're so willing to help, especially now. Ontario is granting us more than they ever have. So it's really, really, really important that you foster these relationships and you help them and you nurture them as well. And networking as well. Networking in the sense of not the mundane, like, I'm just showing up here because you look like you're important and I'm gonna get your name because you're important. Follow me on Instagram. No. Networking in the way that it's organic. You're not forcing relationships. You're not forcing conversation. Try to get to know the person more. Like, think about, oh, so where do you go? Instead of asking, so what do you do? What can you do for me? Like, oh, what do you like to do for fun? Oh, hey, we should meet up. Let's go have a coffee. People in Toronto have an issue. They'll be like, yeah, let's go meet up. Let's have a coffee. And they never call you again. So make sure you follow up with these people. Make sure you follow up with these relationships. Nurture them. So attending community events. Not everyday private party, right? So there's a lot of stuff that happening in the city. Follow a lot of the organizations I had mentioned prior. Follow their pages. See what's going on in the community. See what's going on in the city when it comes to the nonprofits and small showcases that they do. A really great one that I love to attend is Caruza's Jazz Nights. So I meet a lot of awesome people, a lot of awesome artists at their jazz nights, and you get to see a lot of new talent in the city that you probably haven't seen. There's also a lot of one-off programming, even at Artscape here. A lot of times there's a lot of community events here. Pay attention, subscribe to the emails, get that, make sure your face is seen. Like, I always laugh when I come to the community events because I'm always seeing the same people, but you're seeing the same people, they know your face. Your name comes up and you're like, hey, I've seen this person here, I think they'd be a good fit. They do this, they're an amazing person, they're an all around good person. So this all ties into even just building your brand and making sure that you're a reputable person, being in a lot of community events. Nurture and build relationships, made or any relationships from the past. So being in this industry for such a long time, I know a lot of people, and that's just because I've been in it for a long time. And instead of kind of cutting off those people and just moving on with my life and just act like they don't exist, I make sure that I nurture it. I make sure that they know that I'm not only using you because blah, 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 like I actually value you as a person. You know, we all like to feel valued outside of what we can do for people. And like I said, don't force these relationships. It might not always be a friendship thing. Sometimes it's just in passing. You won't always click with everyone, and that is totally fine. I will always suggest make sure it's authentic as possible, because you never want to be in a position where you're looked at as someone who's an opportunist. And that's, people can smell it from a mile away, especially in music. And just staying up to date with anything going on in the community and what they're interested in. Honestly, I'll always say, listen to the youth. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm considered older now for some reason. So the new kids coming up in the industry, like 19, 20, 21, keep in touch with them. See what they're doing. See what's cool. See what new collectives are popping up, because a lot of this new generation, they have a push that we haven't seen before. They're creating a lot of spaces for themselves, a lot of spaces for creatives, especially the Black creatives. They're facilitating a lot of workshops. They're doing a lot in the city. So it can not only give you a refresher of what your vision is, but it can also help you learn new skills, new rules, new ways to communicate, new ways to do things. Like TikTok is like the biggest thing nowadays. The kids will teach you all how to use that. So just staying up to date with anything that you see going on and just fostering those relationships in general. And I think and just be your most authentic self. Like, I definitely want everyone to understand, and that's just not only in the nonprofit sector, but just life in general, be your most authentic self. You don't want to be like 10 different versions of yourself and people kind of don't know who you are, and you end up in this kind of whirlwind of you're just fake, or fake people around you and non-authentic people around you, because fake will attract fake. So if you're your most authentic self, people can smell that from a while away. They'll want to work with you, they'll want to build with you, they'll want to help you make your career just off the goodness of their heart, because you are a good person. Literally, that's literally it. Just be a good person. That's all I ask, please. Because we're in this together, especially in Canada, and especially in Toronto. We're such a small community. We have so much talent here. We have so much community projects that we have facilitated in place for us, but a lot of us like to gatekeep. A lot of us like to kind of keep it to ourselves. So all I ever ask when I tell someone who wants to get into this industry, especially in the nonprofit sector, is we're not here to gatekeep, especially if you work for a nonprofit. It's kind of like redundant to do that. Oh no, not them shutting me up like the Grammys. You want to be your most authentic self in any space that you're in. I can give like a quick story before I wrap up, but about 8 years ago, we used to record our podcast out of Remix. It wasn't here, it was somewhere else. It was before they came here. And Jessie Reyes was there playing with her guitar. And like, it was just kind of like a community space. Everyone was just like playing their music, sharing what they're working on and stuff like this. And now, maybe a decade later, Jessie Reyes is on those stages performing. And one thing I will always say is that my interactions with her always been amazing. From I was young, she was so sweet to me. When we met, she didn't know me from nowhere. And now 10 years later, I can go and she won't need my vouching, but I can vouch for her in a way where I'm like, she's an amazing artist and she's an amazing person as well. So you always want that kind of thing, longevity with your reputation. And I don't know, my thing phrase? Oh, that's my little meme. Oh my God. Just thank you for listening. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. If there's something you want to go more in depth about, I'd be happy to answer. Any clarification on anything, dear floor is yours.
Any questions? I'm gonna ask you guys to use the mic just so people can hear on the stream. So whoever has any questions first wants to go ahead. This is the end after, correct?
Yeah, unless you want to stay here and party.
Yeah, yeah. This is a question.
Yeah. All right. Hi. My name's Owen. Nice to meet. I'm trying to pick. I got so many. So you mentioned that you had that one person that sort of lost sight of who they were and lost their morals, and it's sort of like threw a wrench in the whole machine, and you're still picking up the pieces afterwards. What are some ways now that you work to prevent that from happening again?
That's a good question. And the reason why I focused on so much, especially working with the nonprofit sector and being authentic in this industry, is I feel like because I fostered a lot of these relationships with people in the city and they know me outside of that situation that happened, that's how I was able to kind of rebuild my brand and my reputation and kind of detach myself from it. It wasn't easy. You'll have to do a lot of apology touring. You'll have to do a lot of explaining, a lot of over-explaining. But, you know, those kind of people, they always show who they are. So one way or another, even if someone kind of is like, oh, I don't trust them, they're fake, all of them are part of it, that person will always kind of show their ass, for lack of better words. So I kind of had to rebuild my entire self. I actually left the industry for about 5 years. I became a flight attendant, and, you know, during COVID, I came back in 2020, 2021, and kind of had to deal with the past backlash from what happened years ago. But I feel like with all the time that's passed and all the relationships I have fostered and built and help grow, I think I am in a good space now. But when it first happened, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. But like I said, stay to your authentic self. The people who ride out for you will ride out for you, and they'll know the truth. People are still going to hate. There's still people to this day who have things to say, but just being your authentic self, build a community, make sure you have support during that time, because it can be very hard, very, very hard to rebuild yourself. Don't give in to imposter syndrome. Know that there's a reason why you were where you were at one point. And just make sure anyone that associates with that person, don't, X them. Make sure they're not around you in those rooms, because you never want a case where, again, you're associated with that kind of person, unfortunately.
I guess other than that, you mentioned that, I mean, you've been in the industry for a really long time, even if you've left for a bit. I just was wondering, what would you say is like one of the most edifying, like what keeps you in the industry? Like what gets you out of bed in the morning, I guess, is the simple way to put it.
That's a good question too. I've never really thought of that, because it's just been always something I've done. I never went to college. I never went to post-secondary at all. Straight out of high school, I started doing music journalism. So it was kind of one of those where I'm Jamaican background, so we're watching Disney Plus. I'm from a Jamaican background, so if you didn't go to college, you're basically you're a waste of space. Why are you here? So I needed to make sure I solidified myself in something that made sense, and that I could show my parents, hey, I'm doing this. I've loved music since I was a kid. I've always been obsessed with music, so it only made sense to do that, and I was a great writer. But when you're in it for so long, you kind of lose why you wake up in the morning, like you said. So for a long time, I was just like, this isn't for me. Coming back into it 2 years ago, I realized why I came into it. And it's just helping artists in the city, helping our community build. I've always loved Toronto's music scene. I've always been obsessed with it, and I've always wanted to see our artists grow. And I've always wanted to be a pivotal person in that. So just knowing that at least one person feels valued as an artist, as a creative, is what really kind of gets me out of bed in the morning. when we host things at Manifesto, like programming at Manifesto, and we see artists network with people they probably would have never met before, and then seeing those relationships grow, and now they're partnered with this person. And we had a brunch after our festival, an industry brunch, where we invited a ton of the creatives in Toronto, and had basically like Director X, Dalton Higgins, a lot of the Amazon, TikTok, like all the big industry people, and have them in the space with a lot of our community creatives who probably would never, ever get that chance to do that. So just having them in those spaces and facilitating that and being one of the catalysts to build that new Toronto Renaissance is definitely what makes me want to push and continue, despite all the insanity that happens in this industry.
Yeah, I like the Toronto Renaissance. That's a good way to put it.
No, we're coming up. I feel like Toronto in about five, I'll give it 5 years, I won't say 10. In 5 years, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And if we keep going in the direction that we are, I feel like we could. And that is going to be led by the nonprofits you see today, literally. They're the ones that are going to be pushing these artists. Because these big industry people don't really care about us. So it's our job to push our culture forward, for lack of better words.
Yeah. What would you say Manifesto does different to other nonprofits?
Manifesto's been around for like 17 years. Yeah, 17 years now, 16, 17. And there might be people who could say something differently to my answer, but I will say this new era of Manifesto, what we do differently, I think it's because everyone on our team, we take ego out of the work that we do. We do it because we genuinely care about the community, and we're getting back into the community, right? There was a time, maybe 2-3 years ago, no one really knew about Manifesto anymore. No one really cared about like what we were doing and things like that. And I think it's also because, you know, COVID happened, and a lot of times when organizations, in general, anything, when you get too comfortable, you don't really get back in tune with what's popping. You know, you're good at this point. Why should I branch off? So having fresh blood, for lack of better words, they're young team members on our team, keeping it fresh, putting us onto a lot of game, put us onto like a lot of great artists in the city, and just having a whole entire core team that puts the life back into what Manifesto always has been for, you know, for the community. So I think that's what we're doing different this year. Can't really speak on the years I was not here, but definitely this year, what a lot of feedback I've been getting is that people think that we've been giving life into Manifesto again, and it's coming back to 2018 Manifesto, when, you know, they would basically run the programming for all the new musicians in Toronto. So I don't really think a lot of people are doing that. Like Rolling Loud was like the first other music festival we kind of had that was to the grand scale in Toronto. So we don't really run music festivals, especially with our artists on the stage. Rolling Loud was probably like the biggest one we had, and that's like probably the first notoriety one, other than OVO Fest, but I don't know if that counts because all the artists on that stage are already known. But yeah, I think that's what we're doing differently. We're putting our artists on a huge stage with international artists as well. So, because Toronto people have a problem with supporting our own. So the only way that they will come out to see us is if, you know, we're paired with a big name like Davido, or paired with a big name like last year we had Jid. So I think that's kind of what we're doing different, but hopefully it gets to a point where we have an all Canadian lineup and everyone's just excited to go, and we don't have to bring in the backups.
Yeah, bringing it back to the lesson a little bit, you mentioned that one of the most important things coming up in this industry is finding a mentor, and like not just a mentor, but a mentor that is respected and reputable, and somebody who other people look to with respect. So with that, who would you say, or not who would you say, but like, who was your mentor or some of your mentors, and what are some of the main things that you think you picked up from them to now?
The very first mentor I had, unfortunately, was not a good one, and that's why I focus on making sure you have a good one. But when you're young in the industry, you don't know who to ask, right? This one person, they give you gold, and so you're gonna trust them. So that was my very first mentor, was somebody that was not a good mentor for me, and I didn't know that till obviously later on. I would say a lot of my mentors now, my boss now, like she hates when I call her my boss, but my manager, my boss, she is my mentor now. She's helped me a lot with my career and growing my career back up. A lot of the other girls I used to do GYALCAST with and BAREGYAL, a lot of them are my mentors. A lot of them work for like Sony and TikTok and a lot of the SoundCloud. So when I was trying to build myself back up, they gave me amazing advice, made sure I was all in the right rooms, told me what I need to be told, criticized me where I need to be criticized. And honestly, my advice when you are looking for a mentor, this might be biased, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know what, statistics will never lie. Find a black woman in this industry to help you. Find a black woman, and I mean this specifically because black women are the most uncared for type of person in this industry. We're kind of pushed to the side. We're kind of looked at as we're not very knowledgeable. We don't have, the tools needed to facilitate anything in this industry, and we're always kind of disrespected a lot, not taken seriously a lot. When if you look at it, a lot of the reason why Toronto's music scene is the way it is now, not my alarm, sorry. The reason why the Canadian music industry is the way it is now is because of black women who are spearheading it. So if you could find a black woman that is reputable, and because my mentor was a black woman who was not the best, but if you can find one that's reputable, she's, been in the industry, knows her stuff, that I don't think it will ever lead you astray, in my opinion. So definitely like the girlies I've been working with from I was a teenager who's seen me grow up, those are my mentors now to this day. And also a lot of new people that I meet throughout the way have, they've seen me trying to come up in this. Nonprofit is not, it's running a festival, doing nonprofit was never my bag. This is all a new venture for me. I'm learning so much. And it wasn't for the black women that are mentoring me, I wouldn't be where I was today. So it's a really good question. Trust black women, as they all say.
Yeah, for sure. And then just last question, any local talent, local artists that you like to, that you listen to, that you like to put everyone on to?
Wave Montega, a little biased, but he's amazing. He just dropped his album, Catharsis. Amazing, amazing talent. What we've been looking for in the city for a while when it comes to rap. There's a lot of R&B, obviously. Dylan Sinclair, he's amazing. Raheem, hopefully he's dropping music soon. Toronto's R&B is some of the best. Oh, why am I blanking now? Planet Giza, but they're from Montreal. But I support all Canadian talent. Big up the Francophone them. Benita, she was on our stage as well. Toby, obviously. And there's this Ryan Douglas. Ryan Douglas, is that his name? Is that right? He opened for Savannah Ray. He is like 18 or 17. Amazing, 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 amazing. So definitely keep an eye out for him. B-Rob, he's a really good rapper. He's on the come up. He's doing really well as well. So those are some great artists I think people should keep an eye on coming out of the city, definitely. Cool. Any more questions? No? Cool. All right. Thank you guys for attending. Thank you.
I want to thank, I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Over there. Yeah. I want to thank everyone who's still watching online, everyone who's listening afterwards, listening on the radio whenever this airs. I want to thank Shans again for joining us. It has been a pleasure. For anything, The Cool Table are dropping gems. Before you go to adrielsmiley.com, The Cool Table Live on Instagram. Until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Thank you. Ugh, I need a shot.